Janatrita Sheta Sen Dukheka Nubraku Nupara Dukheka Dukheka Discover Natarian philosophy through music, through video lectures, and through books by Sabai Dr. Muata Ashby. Peace be with you.
Ready for you?
Uja and dua to everyone. Good to see everyone there, and dua for attending tonight to look up, to kind of share with me some of this information that I think is very important and actually exciting. And it's nice to hear, the a couple of aspirants who spoke just now, and to see some of the old timers there. What I'd like to present to you today is, in a way, a follow-up, and in a way, something new that has not been presented before, has been alluded to. I've talked about it a little bit, and some of you know that I've been working on this. Actually, if you really want to think about it, it's been in the works for about intensely in the works for the last 3 years. This particular work that is coming to its fruition now, and in a larger context, it's been going on since the late 90s, and I'll talk about the kind of the dating of things in a few minutes. So, first of all, I'll start with a opening prayer. Utati nesunetera ambu wepad nevta jeser perkeru ka ped sineterari makeru.
Dina Satra Ampurafat Nevlajasan Bekeru Kakaped Sinatarari Mukeru
Duara keftubene e maketate dempet anete shake itiem kepera kemam neteru kake ubenke pesemuke katien suten neteru.
Dura Kerev Makera Dempet Anate Sharake Itiam Kepera Kemam Kake Uke Peset Mutke Katiam Sute
Dua sekmet, dua set, arimes, ankuja senet.
Dua Sakmet Dua Set Adimes Ankuja Sate
Dua hereru netrita.
Dua Netrita
Catch up. I'd like to begin with a tour of the location that is the focus of our study. I will turn off my camera for now. What you're looking at here is the tomb of the sage king Seti I, Seti Ua. And he lived around the year 1250, 1300 BC. And in this tomb, there are a set of scriptures. Some of it is the Book of Gates that you see on this particular section. And going forward, there are some scriptures from the Pertum Heru, the Book of the Dead, that everyone knows, the Book of Enlightenment, that most people are familiar with. And if we go further into the interior of the tomb, as we'll go right now, we'll go and scroll through right now, you're going to see that there is a special text that was known since that time, but prior, there are some indications that some of the sections might go back to earlier periods. But this particular codification was done in the New Kingdom era. There are four main eras of ancient Egyptian history that are recognized. Five: the pre-dynastic, the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, and Late Period. And this is from the New Kingdom, which is considered the height of ancient Egyptian culture, power within the dynastic period. There are indications that the culture was even further advanced and much greater in earlier pre-dynastic period. But we're leaving that discussion for now. We're moving through the various chambers of the tomb, and let's take a quick look around. This is the main tomb chamber here. Image of Goddess Nut and the sky, the journey of the solar boat at night. In this particular room here, there's a special text that I was talking about that is the subject of our discussion tonight. The special room, it has four walls, a ceiling. The text on the four walls relates to a special mythic teaching about the goddess Heteru and her manifestation as the eye of Ra and as the goddess Sekhmet. And this text, I first discovered it in the late 90s, and I did I discovered the main piece of it that I recognized immediately as a meditation teaching, and did a translation, and that turned into an early book that was published in the late 90s, and then it was republished in the mid 2000s with images and such. But that book related to had that it's a piece that is on the wall in this tomb, but that early book did not contain the whole text of all the walls, contain the whole teaching. It was based on a later teaching of the late period that has inclusion of a series of parables. This does not have the parables. It has the earlier part of the teaching that, if you say, was codified. And when it means codified, it means that it's something that was written down and carved and officially written. But it was there prior. But we use the codification year as a kind of a standard way of denoting the reference, how it is relative to other scriptures or other periods of time. So now this particular book book series that we're talking about tonight has all of these lines of text that you see here. They're all translated. And that is in the first book. The first book has a translation of the whole scripture with a trilinear format. And then the second book, as you're going to see, has extended and detailed exposition of each verse of scripture in a series of commentaries. So you can consider that this particular room and all of the rooms with their special texts were meant for people to go. And when I mean people, I'm talking about the royalty, the noble class, and the priests and priestesses, to go and to do their ablutions, to go and do their studies, to go and do their meditations. And so what we did during the program of the 2023 Unitarian Conference is that we had these walls photographically blown up so that they could be viewed, and we tried to make like a little room that one could go into and see all these images as if you're going into the room here. And so, with that in mind, the translation and the book series and the forthcoming uh, lecture series, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is dedicated to understanding the sheer greatness, the glorious, wondrous philosophy teaching that is contained, and you're going to see that there are some verses that lead up to the glorious light meditation. They prepare you, and that's the first part of the book. The next part contains the meditation system, and then the part after that. So there are three parts. The part after that leads you beyond the glorious light into a kind of non-dual transcendental experience beyond the audible chant, beyond the visualizations. You're transcending, in other words. And maybe we'll give a little taste of that, so you can see what is meant by that. So these images, the images of the divine cow, goddess Nut, some of these images are given to augment the scripture, but they also help to have the feeling of the scripture, and that is talked about and is presented through the book as well. The book has a lot of imagery, as we're going to see. So without further ado, let me go to the presentation, and then we'll take a look at some pages of the book. So what you're seeing here on the left, that is the book that I was talking about that came out in the mid-2000s. And it deals with the glorious light, with the parables, and the basic philosophy of the glorious light. The two books that you see on the right, they are larger books, and they, we're going to show some interior of the book in a few minutes. They give you a detailed, the most detailed that I am aware of ever that has been given, a full translation and a philosophical discourse on the teaching of the tomb. The scripture has been known by various names. Some Egyptologists call it the destruction of humankind, or the story of the Eye of Ra, and I refer to it as the scripture of Ra and Heteru Sekhmet. So you see in the center, these two books will be published at the same time, expectedly September. For those who may be interested in more directly in following this path, especially with the idea of becoming instructors, a program may be starting during the summer where you'll get earlier access at least online access, not the physical book yet. Physical book will come out in September, or maybe late August. We'll see. And these two books will come out at the same time, so people can have access to both of them. And later we will put together a hardcover. So that's going to be they're going to have to be done differently. So this is going to come out first. So as you see here, it's a new translation of the ancient Egyptian scripture. And at the bottom, the earliest codified, fully instructed meditation system in human history. And that is the qualification of that statement is that as far as we know in our known human history, this particular scripture is the earliest known codified scripture. There are other meditation systems of ancient Egypt, but this is the earliest codified, meaning that it was carved in stone and we have a record of it and when it was done, etc., etc. And what it means also is that this is earlier than the meditation systems of India, earlier than the Upanishads, earlier than Buddhism, earlier than anything else that we know of, meaning a codified meditation system with a posture, with visualization, with a chant, with a fully instructed, as far as I'm aware, this is the earliest known ever. And everything in the book is fully documented. So let's take a look further on the next slide. So among other things, the ancientness and the importance of it, I think you're going to, for those of you who attended the conference or you read the earlier book, you have an idea of what I'm talking about. But in the conference that we did, 2023, I was not able to complete the whole scripture. And the whole scripture was done then for book one, but I decided to do a commentary series to do the book justice. And that is what has taken much longer to do. But I think you're going to be pleased when you see it. And even more pleased when you get the lecture series explaining it all also. The tomb is in the Valley of the Kings, but the area known as the Valley of the Kings. There are tombs that are carved in the sides of the mountains in the west bank of the Nile. And those are, when you go down into these entrances, then you see the image that we showed earlier in the 360 views. Looking at volume 1, what is it all about? What is contained in there? First of all, that we're calling these volumes the Complete Glorious Light Meditation to distinguish it from the earlier book, Glorious Light Meditation. Translation of the scripture of Ra and Heteru, the world's oldest codified mystic psychology and meditation system. And you're going to see all the mystic psychology that is in here. You psychologists who are out there are going to be having lots of fun, put it that way. Historical significance, discovered in the tomb of Seti I, 1350 BC to 1250 BC, 3,400 years ago. Earliest known systematic meditation teaching in human history. Complete spiritual curriculum integrating myth, ritual, ethics, and mystical practice. 3-tiered spiritual progression. This is what I was talking about earlier. The book. This is how the book is laid out. This is when you read the whole thing. This is what jumps out at you. So it's not something that we are imposing on the scripture. The scripture is saying this by its layout. There's a foundational level, and that it says 138 to verses 145, but this is actually not correct. It should be 1. Verse 1, 145, somewhere in that area. It's general. Proper preparation, attire, and posture is in there in this section. Basic ritual components and purification practices. Understanding ancient Egyptian spiritual philosophy. You get the whole myth is in here too, the beginning of the myth, and the whole culture and background and its basis in Anunian theology is in there from verse 1 to 145. Intermediate formal practice, verses 146 to 174. This section contains differentiated consciousness meditation using Ra'aku, and that's where we get the name Glorious Light, the Ra'aku. And this is the section that contains the main meditation system that we all have learned about up to this time. So the beginning section gives you all the mythic, psychological foundation. What is life all about? What is the problem that we have as humans? And then leads you, oh, okay, the solution is the meditation. And this is what Lord Jehuti and Tara lead Sekhmet to do meditation that will lead her back to her original experience of who she is essentially. Concentration on divine names, forms, and visualization is all in this intermediate section. Visualization, words of power, the Hekau, Nuk Hekau, Nuk Ra'aku, Nuk Paranu Hekau, that's all in this section. Advanced practice. Now, after we do that section, and I should say, some of you mentioned the breath. There's a whole new section that has opened up in reference to breath, because in this section there was a heavy discussion of the god Shu, and I was discussing this with Sebajab yesterday, the day before, when I was talking about how there is a intricate discussion about, but what it comes down to is that the utterance, there's a collaboration between Lord Jehuti, the god of high intellect, and the god Shu. So there's a collaboration between the two of them. So the god of wisdom, the god of words of power, is collaborating with the god Shu, the god of air, the god of ether, the god of ethereal light, Shuaku. So they are collaborating, and then what happens is that their collaboration, so uttering the chant and having rhythmic breath, visualization with the Jehuti and Shu, that collaboration allows a special ignition to occur of the uja, it's a kind of purifying fire. And we did a little ritual related to this during the conference. The scripture says that it roasts the soul, and what it's doing is that it's roasting your egoistic parts and burning them off. And what is it going to leave? That is what is discussed in the advanced practice section, of leaving you in a state that is transcending of time and space, transcending of egoism, transcending of mind, essentially. And so that leaves you with the discovery of undifferentiated consciousness, dissolution of individual personality into universal awareness, achievement of eternity and forever states. Then the scripture says that a person who makes these achievements are referred to as eternal and forever. Some unique features. So, of course, that is, of course, the culmination of any spiritual philosophy around the world that is a mystic system. It's the same goal, but to discover it in ancient Kemet and in the particular way that it is presented is just it's just fantastic. Unique features: complete trilinear translation with contextual commentary, integration of cosmology, psychology, and mystic practice, systematic approach from ego consciousness to divine realization. This represents a complete spiritual science, not merely meditation techniques, offering practitioners a comprehensive path to spiritual enlightenment through authentic ancient Egyptian wisdom. And that's volume 1. The commentaries are in volume 2. So most of what we discussed so far is in volume 1. Now these are the opening verses of volume 1. And if you remember, this is the same as what was presented in 2023 December conference. And this is just to give you an idea of, you're going to have about somewhere between 160 and 180 verses like this. And each one, some may be done in groups, but some of the verses, they're so rich that they may have 1 to 4 separate commentaries on them, hitting specific topics that are related to them. So these are the verses. These are what the verses look like, and this is the beginning. And here it's talking about the god Ra. And like I said, this is based on Anunian theology, so it's based on the god Ra. Now, another unique thing about the scripture is that it gives a specific take on the origin of creation, and it gives us a sequential and hierarchical determination of mind and consciousness. And that's one of the most interesting parts of the whole teaching, and that opens up many doors. It gives us a sequence of mind and consciousness. So it leads us from understanding how creation emerges from consciousness, and then it develops into undifferentiated consciousness, differentiated consciousness, and then it is witnessing consciousness, and that's the Amun-Ra level. And then we have the ordinary aspects of human consciousness, the ka of a person, the ren, all the parts of the human personality. And this architecture of consciousness gives us a roadmap of how we can trace back our existence from our human awareness trace it back to discover our Ra nature and our transcendental nature beyond even the image of Ra and Nun. So we're going from a state of waking consciousness to discovering our unconscious, our undifferentiated conscious level, our witnessing consciousness level, and going beyond that to the source of consciousness, the absolute existence. That's what the scripture is talking about. And that's why it's so wonderful. It's something that was taken up in later, centuries, thousands of years later, in other traditions, but to find it here, and for those of us who are really taken by the Kemetic imagery and the Kemetic ideal, in our human perspective, meaning that the ancient Egyptian perspective is most enticing to our perceptions, our desires, our feelings. The Vedantins have some good stuff going. The Buddhists have some good things going. But for those who like the Kemetic African, this is the place. This is the one. So now let's take an example, so you can get an idea. So you have an idea of what all the verses are like. So let's look at one of the verses, and then let's look at one of the commentaries, so you can get an idea of what's in both books. So Neter 10 Ankh Ke Na Iu Sekem Na Im Renteju Iu Nejmu. The goddess. This is the turning point. Just to give you all should know the story. Basically, Ra sent Heteru to come to the world and deal with the unrighteous, blaspheming people. She did so. She turned herself into Sekhmet, and then she forgot who she was, started killing everybody. So then Ra went to get her, and so this is the turning point. And this is her reply when he says, on Hetep, come in peace, come in peace. And then she says, this life that you have given me of feeling, emotions, delight, in sense perceptions and intoxicating pleasures of the senses, and the opportunity to pursue that as the most powerful creature, becoming a lioness with complete power over men and women. Hey, that is sweet. The word sweet is the key of the verse. It's enjoyable, it's pleasing, it's pleasurable to me. I don't know anything about your heaven that you want me to come back to, or whatever peace you're talking about. I know about this world of action, and I don't want to stop my actions and pleasures, and I like it here. I get so much enjoyment in hurting and eating them and running them down. I'm talking about people. Seeing fear, seeing them squirm, and then hearing their bones crack as I bite down on them and taste their blood. So this is her reply. This is she loves the power, and she loves eating men and women, and this is sweet. This is just all, you're like when.
I was going to say that Nejmu, the symbol there being dates, and we know how sweet dates are, and like that. So that's how she's finding it, like that
Yeah.
sweetness.
So you can imagine how she's completely lost it at this point. She's lost the awareness of who she was originally, and now she's caught up in this delusion. And that's all she knows, and that's all she loves. It's like that parable of the pig. The sage came by and asked, to you, well, you want to go to heaven? So the pig says, does it have a muck that I can roll myself into and all that kind of thing? If it doesn't have that, then I don't want your heaven. So this is her attitude. So now we're looking at volume 2. This is the first page. I think it has like about 4 pages of commentary, 3 or 4 pages of commentary for verse 29. And it's titled Mystic Psychology, the Anatomy of Divine Forgetfulness and the Mystical Process of Illusory Identity Formation in the Ancient Egyptian Scripture of Het-Heru. So verse 29, so we're using this as a representative commentary, because of course we're not going to go through all 150, 200 commentaries that are in there. So for tonight anyway, the Anatomy of Divine Forgetfulness, what this commentary reveals about the entire volume. So we're looking at this as a representative commentary, so you can get an idea of how the volume 2 is laid out. So you have usually you have the layout of inquiries for reflection. There are some questions to start to give you an indication of what is in the commentary, what is questions about, what are some interesting queries about the verse, what is going on there. Then there's a commentary, the body of the commentary, and then there is a conclusion. So you're being given an idea of what's in the commentary, you're given the commentary, and then you're given a recap, a summary of the commentary, the important takeaways. And that's how the three sections of the commentaries are laid out. So in this one, so we're looking at deep psychological insights, how consciousness becomes trapped in limited identity of the human ego, and the path back to divine awareness. Practical application. Ancient Egyptian wisdom applied to modern spiritual challenges we all face. So there's practicality in here also. It's not just, high philosophy. Teaching preparation. Sophisticated analysis that equips future instructors with profound understanding. So the book is laid out in such a way that this can be it's not an instructional manual for teaching teachers per se. It's more of an instructional manual for a practitioner, for an initiate, for a person who wants to get into the philosophy and live it for themselves. That's what this is really dedicated to. But it can be useful for those who want to become teachers of the system as well. So, but this is, you're going to go beyond the intermediate section of the Glorious Light. You're going to have a deep background of the cultural, psychological, philosophical basis, and then you're going to go beyond that to explore higher levels of conscious existence beyond the audible chant or the silent chant. Practice foundation, essential psychological groundwork for the advanced meditation system. So this advanced groundwork is extremely important. If the groundwork is not done, the meditation system may be practiced, but it may not have the full capacity that it would for a person who has gone through the psychological training, and that is from verse 1 through 146, say, the midsection of the book. So I prepared this so that we can just kind of do it quickly here. I'm going to have the computer read out this first page.
Verse 29 Commentary, Mystic Psychology, the Anatomy of Divine Forgetfulness and the Metaphysical Process of Illusory Identity Formation in the Ancient Egyptian Scripture of Hathru. Inquiries for reflection consider how divine consciousness becomes so thoroughly identified with temporal experience that it forgets its eternal nature. In verse 29, we witness goddess Hathru, Hathor, as Kemet undergo a fundamental shift in personal identification. It is important to understand that she no longer identifies as one with Ra, but rather as a creature of creation that relishes killing, consuming flesh, and exercising power over lesser beings. Her declaration reveals this transformation, this life that you have given to me, of feeling, emotions, delight in sense perceptions and intoxicating pleasures of the senses, and the opportunity to pursue that as the most powerful creature, becoming a lioness with complete power over men and women. Hey, that is sweet, enjoyable, pleasing, pleasurable, to me one. We must understand the metaphysical processes that led to this shift. Consider how Hathru's earthly activities generated the Arayu, karmic impressions, that eventually clouded her self-awareness and created identification with an illusory subject. Indeed, the intensity of worldly experiences forces conscious awareness to concentrate on present mental and physical activities, creating compelling evidence for the apparent reality of separate existence. This ancient teaching reveals much about the formation of ego identity and the path to spiritual liberation. Commentary verse 29 of the scripture of Ra and Hathru presents a profound exposition on the psychology of spiritual forgetfulness. This teaching reveals how divine conscious awareness becomes entrapped in identification with temporal experience. We must recognize that Hathru's transformation into Sea Kemet represents not merely a mythological narrative but a precise description of how consciousness creates and maintains the illusion of separate identity. The process of divine forgetfulness. The transformation begins when Ra sends forth his eye, Hathru, to punish unrighteous humans, as described in verses 24 to 26. 1. In the beginning, Hathru functions as an extension of Ra's divine will. However, through the very intensity of her actions slashing and killing those who have blasphemed against Ra, verse 27, she becomes increasingly absorbed in the physical sensations and emotional experiences of being a powerful predator. 1. This process parallels human spiritual forgetfulness. Consider how this works. Just as Hathru becomes identified with being a powerful lioness, human beings become increasingly caught up in identification with being powerful human personalities.
So there you go. We'll take a look at the full verse commentary when we go and open up the book. And that gives you an idea. It just read up until about there, I think. So this is now looking at book 2. Key takeaways from this verse 29 commentary. The core insight. Divine consciousness can become so identified with temporary experiences that it forgets its eternal nature. Main teachings. The transformation process. Heteru, divine awareness. Sekhmet, ego-powered lioness. Pure materialism. Mirrors our journey from spiritual awareness to ego identification. How delusion forms. Adu. Karmic impressions accumulate from intense experiences. Each action creates mental patterns that shape future identity. The more real the experience feels, the more we identify with it. The pleasure trap. Sekhmet declares worldly pleasures sweet and rejects heaven. Shows how ego gratification blocks access to divine bliss. So that shows you, this particular number 3 shows you, and it's discussed in the commentaries, that her pleasure that she was experiencing as a lioness, when she had lost her mind, that she thought was so great, the pleasure that she thought was so good, that she was missing out on a higher pleasure, the higher bliss of being Heteru, which is one with Ra. And so if we look at the lower pleasure in that context, it means that the lower pleasure is actually a form of suffering. But most people would not think that. Most people think they're having fun and life is good, and but when illness comes, when sickness comes, when injury comes, then there is a rude awakening. Practical application for practitioners. Recognize when your Sekhmet versus Heteru. Use spiritual practices to dissolve false identity patterns. And of course, all those disciplines are given in the scripture. And the one that you're most familiar with, the formal meditation practice, but there is a whole series of psychological disciplines. And Ra and Jehuti give that instruction. For teachers, understand the psychology behind spiritual resistance, guide students through identity transformation process. So for those of you who want to become teachers, you get this background, you'll be better equipped to be able to understand the students and help them, as well as help yourself. And that's what it's all about. The solution, Glorious Light Meditation System, verses 146, 180. This is the advanced section. The advanced section is really from 174 through 180. Provides the antidote. So this includes the regular formal meditation and then the mystic non-dual level of meditation. Provides the antidote to reverse this process of spiritual forgetfulness. So like I said, these books are coming in the fall, and this is what the covers. I think we're pretty much set with volume number 1. Volume number 2 is we're still kind of experimenting with that one. So this is a new image that some of you have not seen before. So what I'd like to do now, what? What? What I would like to do now is to open up the books and show you kind of the interior of what is in the books. This is the book 1, and this is the one that has the translation scripture. So I'll just kind of scroll through a little bit and give us an idea of what is in here. It's your table of contents, publisher page. This gives you understanding of the trilinear system. And then you get, this is an introduction to the scripture. This section, I'm not sure if I put in a translation of this image. This image is of Ra and Sekhmet, which is very rare. And but basically the first part of the book, before we get into the scripture, we need to be introduced to the characters. And so this has information about the goddess Sekhmet, the goddess Heteru, the god Ra, and then there's another little section with the main characters, the god Shu, the goddess Nut, and the god Nun. And so you can have a basis. And so we're doing that through, there's a hymn to Ra, and then there is a commentary on the hymn to Ra, gives you insight into who Ra is, the origin. And then there's a hymn to Heteru as well. And this is from the tomb of Heteru, the tomb of Nefertari rather. An interaction between Nefertari and Heteru. And it's known that very likely Heteru was her tutelary divinity. I mean, she even had a temple to Heteru, and this is the image of the temple in Abu Simbel. There's a special text in that temple that is translated here. It talks about how Nefertari went to the temple to do her spiritual practices, her shedi. And that, all this is to give us a background of feeling for who Heteru represents, what she's about, her interaction with a devotee. This section is about the gods and goddesses that are the main characters of the myth, the mythic teaching. This section talks about how to. This is a method I think that might be helpful to study the text, meaning that when you get the two books, uh, it might be a good way to approach it by reading through the book, the volume 1 first, and maybe twice, making, of course, keeping a journal, making notes before you get it. Like, don't go to the volume 1 and volume 2 at the same time, looking at the verse 1 and then verse 1 commentaries, verse 2 commentaries. Unless you want to, you can do that, but this method would say don't do that. So you get a feeling for the scripture, and then you're going to go and once you have that set in your heart and your personality, the feeling of it, then you're going to get the philosophical background and the mysticism, the deeper insights into things that are going on. And when you have your journal, you may compare, oh, I think this is what's going on, or this made me feel, and then you get to read, more in depth after that. So you don't have to follow this, but this is a suggestion. This section is talking about the tomb of Seti I, where the scripture is located, and some images of the exterior, interior, the history of it, say Seti, and this is the special room that we saw before in the 360 images. These are not images of line art, images of the text. And it just helps to do the study, to compare it to the actual images. So now this is the beginning of the scripture that we showed earlier. And I try to include some images to help give just as the original scripture includes images, including images to help the feeling and understanding visually of what the scripture is talking about. And of course, then the commentaries go more in depth. But this is also to make it more entertaining, more captivating. So I'm going to scroll a little faster here so that we can move along. This is when all the gods and goddesses are meeting up there because people are blaspheming Ra, and then they call Noon. He comes out of the water, and then Ra goes in to the waters. They're all deciding what to do, and then they call the goddess, the eye goddess, and that's Heteru, an aspect of Heteru. And then she goes in as Sekhmet. She turns into Sekhmet to go and do the punishment. And then she goes rampaging and running after people. And then she won't stop. And that was verse 29. And then so Ra has to go and he has to make up this elaborate potion, decoction, so that she can be sedated. And there's a whole mystery about the sedation and her entering into sleep and communing with the souls of Ra and everything that's going on there. There's some priestesses who had to put it together, and then she drinks it. Falls into a deep sleep. And the scripture talks about when that starts to happen, the beautiful women start appearing in the city of Abdu, the city of Assad. So her when he's able to calm her down, her beauty start coming out again. This is Ra talking with Sekhmet, explaining to her what happened and why she has lost her identity. This goddess Nut. Because of all this that happened, Ra decided to. There's too much to go into now, but Ra decided to leave the earth, and he ended up creating the expanded realms of outer space and all existence, and coagulated life, coagulated creation, and so people who had subtle bodies before, now they had now subtle coagulated bodies, solid bodies. And what does all that mean? A way has been created in outer space and outer space is the outer space of the mind, not outer space. There's two outer spaces. There are realms, expanded realms of existence. They're called sectets, and these are realms that we are meant to discover so that we can find our way back to our original state of communion with Ra, the same way that the goddess found her way back by doing these same practices. Is Ra communing with Geb and with Shu, and they're all working out this elaborate plan for human beings to be able to rise from their coagulated states of being, which is what we have now. The physical body is a coagulated state of being, and rediscover our true nature the way Heteru, Sekhmet, discovered her true nature. So here Ra makes a transformation. He emanates an aspect of himself called Jehuti that we all know, the cosmic mind, the intellect, to do the work, while Ra recedes to the innermost regions of the expanded fields of the netherworld, and that we are meant to go there too. Part of that is that you have to practice Ma'at. You have to practice certain rituals of purification. Then you have special clothing you should wear, special cleansing. Then you're able to practice the meditation system that we all know and are familiar with. This is a formal meditation practice, but embedded in the instruction is another verse that talks about informal meditative spiritual practice, and that is around verse 161, and that talks about how you should do these practices during the day and during the night. So you're meant to fill your whole life with the spiritual practice of the teaching that is contained. This is like a whole teaching that's for your whole life. And then the burning, the roasting occurs, the cleansing of your leonine aspect. Your leonine aspect that has lost itself, that is going to be roasted and cleansed. And this process ignites the serpent power. There's a discussion about the serpent power and how one needs to cleanse the serpents that are in the earth. The earth meaning your body. Your body is composed of earth elements. You have certain energies, certain urges. And so here is Shu and Jehuti collaborating, as I discussed earlier. And their collaboration is going to turn cosmic mind, intellect, and ethereal light, Shuaku, into a divine energy that cleanses the personality. Now, this is the later portion. This is the final portion of the book that is leading to the non-dual experience of the divine. This is talking about the roasting of the soul. The soul, the image of the ancient Egyptian soul is a hawk body with a human head. And this is just an image, an AI image put together with a description. Well, actually, I had to Photoshop some of it to give an idea of the ritual. When you do this, when you do the practice, the chant, the philosophy studies, the purifications, you're roasting your soul. You're burning off the egoism, the delusions, the ignorance, and you're leading yourself to a place where you are discovering existence without your concept of self-awareness as an ego person, as a human. You are much more than that. And that's what the scripture is leading you to experience. Can you imagine that this was technology was created, it was known, it was practiced in ancient times? And here we are in the 21st century, and only a few other human groups are doing similar things, when this is the true nature of human being that everybody should be doing, everybody should know about. These final verses talk about how the soul is to be roasted, and also what happens when that roasting occurs. It renders the personality non-dual, meaning that you are rendered free from delusion, free from duality, from desire and hatred, from thinking I'm here, another person's over there, and not realizing that it's all one existence and one glorious non-dual reality. And this is an image based on the text of verse 179. This is a person. You can see him in there with shoes and modern, with a suit, and his soul is communing with the soul of Ra. So let's take a look now at volume 2. This right here is a kind of a final section that puts it all together in the book. So we'll just skip ahead from here. So now we're looking at volume 2. You can see that this is immediately, this gives you an idea. Let me go back to the top here. This is the table of contents you're looking at. These are the sections. So you can realize that this book is about 3 times as large as the volume 1, and Let me go in here a little closer so you can see. These are the verse commentaries that are in this volume. I want to show you something funny. Funny, spiritually funny. Look at verse 161. How many commentaries are there? That's the section that deals with an informal meditation, your day-to-day practice. So you're covered in your formal. So it's not just when you do your formal practice and you go sit down for 20 minutes, half hour, an hour, whatever it might be. This covers you the 24/7 of your life. I'll show you another funny one when we get to the end. Well, here there's a special commentary series, special essays that deal with the god Shu. The god Shu, the god of air, the god of ether, the god of light, that comes from Ra. So you're really in for it when you're studying the teaching, and you have a collaboration, like I said, between Shu and Jehuti. And so here we're bringing air, we're bringing in breath, we're bringing in a light into our spiritual practice. And the engine that ignites it is the words of power. And so when you have the scripture explains that when you have the words of power and you have understanding, this is extremely powerful, because the words of power are actually Ra incarnate. So if you misuse them, if you're using them without understanding, it can lead to trouble. It can lead to misuse. It can lead you astray. It can lead you to having power and using that power in the wrong ways that lead you to pain and sorrow and negative aria. So this whole series here, the special essay series, is on Shu. And then look at what happens here towards the end. Especially, this is the last third. This is the non-dual section, like from verse 174 through 180. Look at all of these commentaries, hitting specific topics to perfect the spiritual practice. That's what's all in this volume. And then there's a final section, part 3, with global commentaries. So these are commentaries that deal with the whole arc of the whole scripture, and that comes at the end. So now let's scroll a little faster so we can make up for our time and in a decent time. Let's just show a few pages of the commentaries. Or let's go to commentary 29 that we just looked at. Let's look at that one. Not sure why all these are blued out. These are all commentaries that you're looking at now. There's not all text. Some of them have images, some of them have diagrams, hieroglyphs. And the thing that you're going to find is that this book, probably more than any of the other ones, it cross-references most of the other books, or say many of the other books, the Hieroglyph Translation Series, the Persian Haru texts that have been translated, and many of the books, especially the books that have been written in the last 15 years, for sure, the last 20 years. Yeah, I think we passed it. Okay, this is commentary for verse 29. So this is the section that was read earlier by the computer, and this is the rest of it. And here's your conclusion section and your references. And some of these have as many as 10, 12 references for other books. If you want more information, or you see where the information is coming from that is being pulled in to help us understand the scripture. And then it goes into the next commentary. There are many dimensions in here, many things that we don't have time to discuss. But once you get these two books, you're going to see how this is like a whole world that will occupy your life. You don't have to go anywhere else. It has everything. It has ritual. So, and yeah, the idea is to start a lecture series in the fall, and also to have uh, to open a way to see if there is interest for those of you who may want to have like a community sessions, and to be able to join on a regular basis to do the practice as studies are going on. But more details will be given on that in the near future. For now, just to say that this is what is coming at you, and I hope that you're as interested and excited about it as I am when you get to see the things that have been brought forth through this wonderful scripture. It's Ahmad, you can take it back.
Oja, dua sabay. Oops, Oja says there's a problem accessing my webcam. Oja, dua sabay. That was very nefer and it's more impressive than I had imagined. As Sabai mentioned, there will be
I want
more.
to say a few words before you take it away.
Nee, go ahead. Oja, sabaja, dua.
I think I just wanted to share. I think those of you who were at the last in-person conference that we had, you know, I think some of you shared the impact of that experience, and then others who shared that you've been practicing, the GLM meditation and the impact of that, and I think at the last conference in person, if you recall, it led to we went outdoors into the sun, and then Subhama did a sort of a healing with everyone, and it was just really a very good feeling, and like the energy of this process, just in communication with Subhama about it, and also just the experience of Subhama as he's been working on the project, is quite like a joyful, relaxing energy. And last year, in preparation for the conference, Subhama, I remember, those of you might remember, he'd done a presentation on the fauna related to the scripture, and that's available on one. We have 2 YouTube channels, and it's available on one of the YouTube channels. Don't know which one. And one of the things Subhama talked about back then, when he was already starting to work, when he was working on it in preparation for the conference, was a sense of like community, like a community feeling that it had. And of course, we always think of like an in-person community, which, intentional communities, which would, be nice to have. However, at the same time, it was more a sense of community, a experience of community, as would be experienced, say, in the temple systems of Kemet, because here we are physically in different locations, and some of us may feel a little isolated physically, and that's one level of feeling, and the other level of feeling is the feeling of the heart, the feeling of the soul, the feeling of the mind, and that creates a sense of this sense of community. So I do look forward to the unfolding process that these books will bring forward, and what will, how it will grow from there in a dynamic in a more dynamic way. Since its introduction, I think it must have the late 90s, but when I used to teach at FIU, and if Sarshashita is still on, she was part of that program, and it had a profound effect even then. Many aspirants had taken it up and practiced it and taught it because we had done training programs. So there are some certified teachers that were certified previously to teach it. And with this program, that may come out of it also. Excuse me, I have like a throat loss. And there was a fire or something in the area, and I got a little bit of smoke in my throat. So yeah, so there's Sarma can speak more about that, but that is an eventual process, and that we're working towards, and with that sense of community also about it, that even at the instructor level, a sense of community, and it's a little bit of a tricky situation. Sharing with you because maybe you all, you've been exposed to other tradition systems, processes. It's a little bit of a tricky situation because you can see the in-depth way in which Simama went through the 2 volumes and what he has there. So previously we had the first book that Simama shared, one before that, and then he has done some translations of certain parts of it, even before the last in-person conference. And even I have, taught some of those translations that he had done at previous conferences. And that's one level of teaching and immersion. And I think this is like a different level of immersion in it and understanding. That was, even with that, at least I could see the power for putting it forth as a system, especially for our time, this time in like history, where the distraction is really at a high level because of all the, all that we know that's going on with the social media and access to information. And also suffering is also, at a higher level as well too. People feel isolated and lonely and, a host of other stressors. And this system, I've always felt it's really made for our time, but it's really, we like to think that that what we're experiencing culturally is so different, and it is, in a way, different than was in ancient times, but the human experience, the spiritual experience, the spiritual human experience that the myth details is always the same as long as there's a human incarnation. It's like always the same. The energy centers don't grow and become multiplied by the amount of distractions that we have. Like now we need like 50 chakras to deal with all the stuff that's going on there that we have to deal with that they didn't have to deal back then, or 200 chakras. It's still the same, like 7 channels that have to be aligned and have to be dealt with so I'm talking about the, the serpent part, the Art Second, the Kundalini, what's called in India, Kundalini and the chakras, like the Sepak Bara, we call them, the energy centers. So it's sort of still so it applies, then it applies now. It did its job then, it can do its job now. And the reason I think now even it's so applicable and important to practice is because I say it's like made for the what do you call it, multitasking mind, which we know like there's really no way to multitask. You're just doing one thing, that mind can only be one thing at a time, they say. And when you think you're multitasking, you're just doing one thing and then jump into another thing and jump into another thing. So it's more like the agitated mind, the Shem mind. Shem is the word for Nashesh mind, agitation, or heated mind. And so because this involves the senses, it involves like the myth, which connects to the heart and the feeling. It involves like the breath, but not just the breath and breathing. It involves the vibrations of the body and the throat and all that. Now they're like talking about polyvagal theory and vagus nerve and how the vibrations bring that online and create a parasympathetic effect. So it has the senses of visualization. It has the imagery of where you sit, how you sit, and so it's like and the breath, and then you can visualize the light and the energy centers. So to really do all of that, it really builds the concentration and allows the mind to become focused. It doesn't allow the mind to easily escape, and if it does, it can escape into one of the areas I'm really getting into the chant. Oh, I'm really getting into the imagery. Oh, I'm really, according to what the personality likes. So it's really a very powerful system. And I look forward to see how it unfolds. We unfolded it before. We trained teachers previously. And they have, some of them have taught it, trained, some of them have taught it. Some of them were, a couple of were at the instructor level, where they gained our permission to train others. But this is like a whole different level. And I guess what I'm sharing is that I think everybody, even though there might be excitement, this is Sepaja's opinion. I don't know if how it's gonna happen, what I was gonna think, but my feeling about it is that, just like Sebama said, he has a way, read this book first before you go into this one, and kind of a prescription of how to go ahead it. I feel like, although there can be excitement about wanting to be a teacher of the GLM, I feel like what needs to be done is that such a person who may have that desire needs to really immerse in the scriptures, in the books that if someone's going to do in presentation, like really immerse in that, and soak that in and practice it themselves and allow the transformation to take place in oneself. Feel and see and experience what happens. Judge for yourself, evaluate for yourself. Because I think if there's a rush to, oh, I want to go teach it, I want to be a teacher of it, then that's going to be like more distraction. Trying to set it up, trying to figure out how to do it, trying to get people. So I think it's like the first step for anybody would be to be involved in any discourses that come forth from it and attend those diligently, and study the texts they're amassing as well, but especially any discourses that come forth from it, whatever that may turn out to be. And I think that's it. That's it.
What's up, man?
Uja, do a sebja for that commentary. Do a sebama.
What is it they say? Like, be the change you want to see in the world, I guess. That sort of reflection. It's like, let it be the transformation of the myth that you would want to teach in the world. Let it start with you. It's that.
Ni dua. Very nefer. So I'm no longer able to turn on my camera for some reason. And I think it's a good time to close, although we had a couple people who came on that did not just sort of acknowledge themselves. And so I wanted to just invite, and for our closing prayer, everyone to post any comments or questions in the chat that we might not, we wouldn't be answering tonight per se, but if there are questions or reflections that you have, and you post them there, and the next time when we reach out and meet, we will share and can address those, but it can give some time for Sabai to reflect on them, or for us to take them in and be able to respond and address them thoughtfully. So if there's anything particularly coming to mind now, feel free to add that to the chat now. And so I see Asar Sa ML and Lucinaria Nefertem. And the two of you were not on, I think, when we did the initial just check-in. Are you able to unmute or turn on your camera?
Uja,
Uja, greetings.
greetings. Sorry, I cannot open my camera right now. I just entered in the half of the meeting because I was coming back from the work, and much doer for the explanation and for the meeting, and I have interest in the studies.
Mefa. Do Santi. And Asar Sa ML.
When the poll was put up, was it?
Oops, Uja. Are you able to still hear me?
Santini, we can hear you, Sarmat. Hatap.
Okay, so we're not able to have Asar Sa ML. Not sure who that is, but if you are, can type in the chat or able to unmute, that would be Nefer. Otherwise, Sabai, I see you put the image back on the screen. Would you like to say more? And we have closing.
Oh, on. I just thought I'd put it on while we're finishing up, unless you wanted to.
Never, never,
That's my.
never. So
Would
as
you say,
Sabai,
oh, I'm
go ahead,
sorry,
Cindy.
Santi.
Go ahead.
Sebama, I just wanted to check, are those mock-up cover images, or are they ready that I can perhaps use other places? Hatep?
Uja, this Sabada's saying no, they're not ready.
Oh,
So no, I think I like the volume one, and to me it has all the elements that are that are. I think that the image of the person meditating, the circle that is the circle of Ra, the glorious light, the light that is shining, it's got the Nuke Hekau. You know, there was a power in the background there. You can see them here, here. I think this one to me is ready. The volume two is a work in progress. So, but I think Sibaja has some ideas. She wants to have input into it, and which is okay. Um, so I think the reason I like the volume number one is because it captures. It's very it's meditative, but it's like understated, and you got the whole comedic feel, the darkness and the light, the circle, which the instruction tell you to visualize the circle. So anyway, that's why I like it. So, but anyway, the books are coming in the fall, so we have a couple of months still yet to go. What I'm doing right now also is I'm doing the polishing work, shall we say, and then there's the final editing that needs to be done, and that'll because we're doing so many pages, it takes weeks to do these things, these final things. So there's plenty of time to work on the covers. So it's I was trying to come up with something that is close or something that's good. Um, but we can think about that. Something that might be useful for marketing perspective. We can think about that. It's nice to have a
much to
cover.
it.
Yeah, it's nice to have a cover, putting on flyers and things, and not just the title and the name. But we'll think of something. It's up.
Much to it. Do us by Hatep.
Yeah, Uja. So as Sabai alluded to in Sebaja, we are in discussions and communications with regard to possible programming, supporting the book and the education and dissemination of the complete Glorious Light Meditation. And so we will be sharing additional follow-up communication via email and possibly reaching out to some of you, to ask more individual sort of questions about your interests and capacity. And then having another meeting with a more complete or comprehensive information about what may be coming next. So shall we have our closing prayer? Anything else before we prepare for closing? Dua Sebama, Dua Sebaja. Dua everyone. We have our closing prayer. Sitting with your back straight. Taking a deep breath in, expanding the abdomen. Exhaling and contracting towards the spine. Amasuen paneter, saug suemeten paneter. Aduanama keti paharu.
Amasunpanate, Sok Sumadanpanate, Aldoanama, Giripahalu.
Nukeka, nukraku, nukbara, nukeka.
Nukekau, nukraku, nukbara, nukekau.
Om hete, pete, pete.
Om hete, pete, pete, pete.
Pete.
Dora.
Do everyone.
Do everyone. What's up?
Do Pete.